Henry II, 1133 to 1189, the founder of the Plantagenet Dynasty, was one of England's most transformative monarchs. Born in Le Mans, France, to Geoffrey of Anjou and Empress Matilda, Henry inherited vast territories spanning England and much of western France. His marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine in 1152 further expanded his holdings, creating what historians call the Angevin Empire, a collection of lands united under Henry's rule, but held together by feudal loyalty rather than centralized governance. Restoring order. When Henry ascended the throne in 1154, after King Stephen's turbulent reign, England was in chaos. The civil war between Stephen and Matilda had left the kingdom fragmented, with barons building unauthorized castles and wielding unchecked power. Henry swiftly reasserted royal authority by demolishing hundreds of these unlicensed fortresses, earning him the nickname the Castle Breaker. This act restored stability and strengthened the crown's position over rebellious nobles. Henry also revolutionized England's legal system. He introduced itinerant justices who traveled across the kingdom to enforce royal law, established jury trials, and codified common law. These reforms centralized governance and laid the foundation for English legal traditions that persist today. His legal innovations were not only practical, but visionary. They created a system that balanced local customs with royal authority. Clash with Thomas Becket. Henry's reign was marked by his bitter feud with Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury. Initially allies, their relationship soured when Becket opposed Henry's efforts to limit ecclesiastical power through the constitutions of Clarendon. The conflict escalated until Becket was murdered in 1170 by 4 knights who believed they were acting on Henry's orders. The assassination shocked Europe and forced Henry into public penance at Canterbury Cathedral. This clash between church and state highlighted a broader struggle for power during the medieval period. Henry sought to assert royal authority over all aspects of governance, including the church, a move that would have profound implications for future monarchs. Family betrayal. Henry faced rebellion not only from external enemies, but also from his own family. His sons, Henry the young king, Richard, later Richard I, Geoffrey, and John, rose against him in 1173 to 1174, supported by their mother Eleanor and foreign allies like King Louis VII of France. Fueled by disputes over inheritance and power, the rebellion was a bitter struggle for dominance within the Plantagenet family. Despite being outnumbered, Henry crushed the revolt with strategic brilliance. At Alnwick in 1174, he captured William the Lion of Scotland and forced his sons into submission. However, these betrayals haunted him until his death in 1189 at Chinon Castle, where he reportedly cursed his ungrateful children with his dying breath. Henry II left behind a legacy of centralized power and legal reform that would influence his successors, but also a fractured family whose rivalries would shape England's future. Richard I, the Lionheart. Richard I, 1157 to 1199, known as Richard the Lionheart for his bravery and military prowess, succeeded his father Henry II in 1189. Unlike his predecessor, Richard spent little time governing England. He viewed his kingdom primarily as a source of funds for his military campaigns. Military genius. Richard's reputation as a warrior king was cemented during the Third Crusade, 1189 to 1192. His ability to inspire loyalty among troops and command armies on distant battlefields made him one of medieval Europe's most formidable military leaders. At Acre, Richard demonstrated exceptional strategic skill by employing advanced siege tactics using trebuchets and crossbowmen to break Saladin's defenses. His victory at Arsuf further showcased his tactical genius. Richard led disciplined cavalry charges that shattered Saladin's forces despite being heavily outnumbered. Richard was not only a masterful tactician, but also a fearless fighter who led from the front lines. His physical courage earned him admiration among both allies and enemies. Saladin himself reportedly respected Richard as a worthy adversary. Diplomacy during the Crusade. Although Richard failed to recapture Jerusalem itself, his negotiations with Saladin resulted in a truce that allowed Christian pilgrims access to the city, a pragmatic outcome that preserved some measure of success for the Crusaders. This diplomatic achievement highlighted Richard's ability to balance military aggression with political pragmatism. The Third Crusade showcased both Richard's strengths and limitations as a ruler. While he excelled in warfare and diplomacy abroad, his focus on foreign campaigns left England vulnerable to financial strain and political instability. Captivity and ransom. On his return journey from the Holy Land in 1192, Richard was captured by Duke Leopold of Austria after an ill-fated attempt to travel incognito through Europe. He was handed over to Holy Roman Emperor Henry VI and held for ransom. A staggering sum of 150,000 marks, equivalent to 2 years' revenue for England. The ransom drained England's treasury and burdened its people with heavy taxes. Despite this setback, Richard's popularity among his subjects remained strong due to his heroic reputation as a Crusader king. Death. Richard met an ignoble end in 1199 while besieging Château de Châlus-Chabrol in France over a minor territorial dispute. Struck by a crossbow bolt fired by a defender on the castle walls, he died from gangrene days later. On his deathbed, Richard forgave his killer, a rare moment of grace from a king known for ferocity. While Richard's reign was marked by military brilliance, it left England financially weakened and politically unstable due to his prolonged absences. John, the troubled King John, 1166-1216, often called John Lackland because he inherited little compared to his brothers, is one of England's most controversial monarchs. His reign, 1199-1216, was marked by military failures, oppressive taxation, and rebellion. Loss of Normandy. John inherited a kingdom weakened by Richard's wars and ransom payments. In 1204, he suffered a catastrophic defeat against King Philip II of France at Château Gaillard, losing Normandy, a core part of the Angevin Empire, to French control. This loss undermined John's authority and alienated many of his barons. The loss of Normandy also marked a turning point in English history. It severed ties between England and its continental possessions, while strengthening France as an emerging power. Oppressive rule. To fund attempts to reclaim Normandy and maintain royal power, John imposed heavy taxes on his subjects through measures like scutage, payment in lieu of military service. These financial burdens fell hardest on peasants already struggling with famine caused by poor harvests. For ordinary people living under John's rule, life was brutal. Most lived in mud-floored huts with little food or security while enduring backbreaking labor. John also clashed with Pope Innocent III over the appointment of Stephen Langton as Archbishop of Canterbury. When John refused Langton's appointment, Innocent placed England under interdict, a ban on church services, isolating John from Christendom until he relented. Magna Carta. By 1215, John faced open rebellion from his barons over issues like taxation and arbitrary justice. Cornered at Runnymede, near Windsor Castle, he signed Magna Carta, a document limiting royal power and guaranteeing certain rights for nobles. Though initially annulled by Pope Innocent III at John's request, Magna Carta became a cornerstone for constitutional governance in later centuries. Magna Carta represented not just a challenge to John, but also a shift toward accountability for rulers, a concept that would resonate throughout English history. Death. John died in 1216 during yet another civil war sparked by French invasion led by Prince Louis, later Louis VIII. He succumbed to dysentery while fleeing rebel forces through marshlands near Newark Castle. A fittingly inglorious end for one of England's most reviled kings. The Plantagenet legacy. The Plantagenet dynasty endured through turmoil under Henry II's reforms, Richard I's military exploits, and John's failures, but its survival remained uncertain after John's death. Would young Henry III restore stability, or would internal divisions tear apart what Henry II had built? The legacy left behind was one that shaped medieval Europe, but left England precariously balanced between triumph and disaster. And questions lingered about whether this dynasty could truly endure its challenges, or fade into obscurity amidst growing unrest.